Hello, and welcome to another episode of Top Drives, or another video on Top Drives. This time we're looking at the best of each brand. Now, like I showed when I looked at the different stats of a lot of the vehicles, I showed that there was essentially a lookup of all the cars in the game, and you can look at basically everything about them. You can look at all their stats. You can, look at basically everything going on in here. Even how much it would cost to, or how much you would get for selling it, and all sorts of different things going on. But we're going to look at only the best ones, and then we're going to essentially give the best and the worst of all of them. So, even though there may be some that have like a very similar rank, like this one. Okay, that's not a good example, but like let's give the obvious example. This one right here is S30, which is basically the best of everything, which is essentially the same as the one in the top left, but I'm only going to be going with the one in the top left, even if you can't actually, get it, and you can only get it through, as it says down here, by winning certain events, which I've probably passed, and you probably can't actually get it, but I'm just going to ignore that. So, let's start with Acura. So, the NSX from 2016 is a top speed of 191, 0 to 60 time of 2.9 seconds, a grip of 90, which is pretty much the max. It has four-wheel drive and a performance tires. Now, the next one, Audi, it's quite good. The 2015 Audi R8 Coupe V10 Plus has a top speed of 205, a 0 to 60 time of 2.9, the exact same as the Acura. Grip a little bit worse, however, the top speed is a little bit higher. And the same four-wheel drive and performance tires as probably most of the things that'll be in this video. Next is BMW, one that I kind of expected to be a little bit better, however, we have to deal with what we got. The 2011 BMW M3 CRT is a top speed of 180, which is less than both of the two previous cars. A 0 to 60 time of 4.2, which is a nice 1.3 seconds slower than the previous two. A grip of 85, which is worse than the others. A rear-wheel drive system, which is not as good as the four-wheel drive of the other two. And performance tires, just like the others. However, this thing is lower in terms of rank in that, so makes sense. Next, the 2017 Bugatti Chiron, has a top speed of 261, significantly higher than anything we've seen so far. A 0 to 60 time of 2.4 seconds, which is higher than anything we've seen so far. A grip of 91, which is the highest we've seen so far. And along with four-wheel drive and performance tires. It's pretty good, one of the best vehicles in the game. Next is probably one of the most disappointing tops in the game, and probably wish it was more like the GNX, but the GNX is kind of not as good. The 2008 Buick Enclave, which kind of sucks, has a top speed of 108, which is at least like 70 less than the lowest of what we've already had. A 0 to 60 time of 7.9, which is one of the slowest that we're going to see in this video. A grip of 77, which is awful for being essentially a off-road vehicle. With four-wheel drive and all surface tires, it's probably more well-rounded than some of these others, but it's kind of slow. Next, we have Cadillac, which is less disappointing, since we have the 2015 CTS-V with a 200 mile an hour top speed 0 to 60 in 3.7 seconds, and 84 grip. It's a little bit less than some of the higher ones we've seen so far, with rear-wheel drive and performance tires, although it makes sense since its race quota is not as high as some of the others. Caterham, interesting one here. We have the 2008 RS Levante with 150 miles an hour for the top speed. However, it's not really meant to be quick in that area, as it has a 2.9 0 to 60 time, which is the same as the Audi and the Acura from at the beginning. It has a grip of 90, which is the same as the Acura, and it has rear-wheel drive and performance tires, unsurprisingly. Chevrolet has the 2016 Corvette Z06, which looks amazing, with 185 as the top speed, 0 to 60 in 3.1 seconds, which is quite a bit faster than the Cadillac, although it's, slower than a few of the other things we've seen already. 89 grip, which is pretty good. Rear-wheel drive and performance tires. Citroen, this is also another one that's kind of disappointing. The 92 BX4TC, which has a top speed of 138, which is the second lowest that we've seen so far, besides for the Enclave. And a 0 to 60 time of 7.5, and 85 grip, which is pretty good. 4-wheel drive and performance tires, but that is essentially based off of a rally car, sort of, but, at least in some capacity. DS, which is essentially a Citroen thing. The DS3 Performance. 143 is its top speed, which is higher than the Citroen. The 0 to 60 time is 6.3, which is lower than the Citroens. It has the exact same grip at 85, along with front-wheel drive, which is the worst drive that we've seen so far, and performance tires. It's not exactly a good set right there. Next we have Ford, unsurprisingly. The 2017 Ford GT is the best one that they have. Top speed of 216, a 0 to 60 time of 3.1 seconds, the same as the Chevrolet, and a grip of 90, which is the same as the Caterham from before, along with rear-wheel drive and performance tires. Next, we have GMC and their 2010 Terrain, which has a top speed of 118, which is not the slowest because the Buick is slower. A 0 to 60 time of 6.7, which the Buick is, again, slower. It has... And it has 76 grip, which is actually the lowest we've seen so far, since it is a little bit lower than the Buicks. It has 4-wheel drive and all-surface tires, making it kind of comparable to the Buick, just, slightly faster. And on to Honda. The best one is the 2002 NSX-R, which is a top speed of 173, along with a 0 to 60 time of 4.7 seconds, a grip of 86, and rear-wheel drive and performance tires, which the rear-wheel drive and performance tires, unsurprising for a essentially 90s car, even though it's not, but, essentially. Next, we have Hummer, which has one of the most disappointing lineups, besides for maybe GMC, which could probably have a better lineup than just the 3 cars that are in there, but, Hummer's best is the 2006 H3, which has a top speed of 97, a 0 to 60 time of 9.3, which is the slowest we've seen so far, and a grip of 65, which is also the lowest we've seen so far, along with four-wheel drive and the first off-road tires we've seen. It's pretty good. Next is Infiniti, with the 2016 Infiniti Q60, which has a top speed of 155, a 0 to 60 time of 4.8, a grip of 83, and four-wheel drive and performance tires, which makes it, relatively comparable to some of the other cars we've seen so far. Alright. Next is Jaguar with their 2017 F-Type SVR Coupe, which has a top speed of 200, along with the 0 to 60 time of 3.5 and a grip of 84, making it very comparable to the CTS V from a while ago, along with four-wheel drive and performance tires, which, means that it's slightly better. Oh, this thing is really cool. So, next up is KTM, which is probably not a brand that most people would actually recognize, but they have the 2016 Expo GT4, which has a top speed of 160, but a 0 to 60 time of 3.6, which means it's comparable to the Caterham in their philosophy of not a super high top speed, but really quick and nice and grippy, as it has a 990 grip, which is the same as the Caterham, and a rear-wheel drive and performance tires, again, like the Caterham. Next is Land Rover, which, surprisingly for being very comparable to how GMC or Hummer would run things, doesn't have a very disappointing top vehicle, since the 2016 Range Rover Sport SVR has a top speed of 162, which is higher than the KTM that we just looked at, a 0 to 60 time of 4.5, which is less than half of the Hummer's time, and also has 75 grip, which is less than the GMC and the Buick, but is still, better than the Hummer's terrible grip. It also has four-wheel drive and all-surface tires, unsurprisingly. So, realistically, it's just like the others. Lotus, with their 2015 Exige S, which has a top speed of 170, a 0 to 60 time of 3.6, the same as the Expo, 88 grip, rear-wheel drive, and performance tires. Next up is McLaren with their 2014 650S, with a top speed of 207. It is more than the Jaguar and the Cadillac and the Audi from way at the beginning. It also has a 0 to 60 time of 2.9, which is still the second best we've seen so far, behind the Bugatti, but it's still tied with the Audi and the Acura. And a grip of 90, which is still basically the best, tied again for the second best we've seen so far. And the is rear-wheel drive and has performance tires, unsurprisingly. Mercedes-Benz 2013 Mercedes-AMG SLS Black Series, which is slightly disappointing for how good it should be, but it has a 196 top speed, 3.5 seconds, 0 to 60, which compared to something like the McLaren is quite slow, but you know. And it has a 89 grip along with rear wheel drive and performance tires, which, not to hate on this thing, but it could probably be better, which is why you can upgrade it. But, you know, whatever. Now this, I would say, is the most disappointing vehicle out of all of them. Even though some of its stats are technically better than the Hummers we've seen so far, it is extremely disappointing. Oh, wait, no, I'm talking about something else. Don't worry about me. Not the Mini. The 2016 Mini John Cooper Works All-4 Countryman has a top speed of 142, a 0 to 60 time of 6.6, which is considerably slower than some of these other ones, a grip of 71, four-wheel drive and all-surface tires, but that just means that it's kind of a smaller, more nimble off-road vehicle, which is pretty sweet, considering the fact that most of these Mini Coopers are more like performance and, you know, all that, but, you know, the best one is more of an off-road thing, which is not the most disappointing car. I was thinking of something else. I was getting ahead of myself. The Mitsubishi is the 2008 Lancer Evo X FQ400 at a top speed of 175, which is pretty good, 0 to 60 time of 3.2, and a grip of 87, along with four-wheel drive, which, you know, most Mitsubishis have, which is essentially because it's a rally car, and performance tires. And next is the Nissan GTR, or the 2014 GTR, with a top speed of 196 and a 0 to 60 time of 2.7, which means that even though it is overall slower than something like the Audi or the McLaren, it does have a faster 0 to 60 time than it, which, you know, makes sense considering the GTR is really fast off the line, and honestly would probably beat, you know, the Audi or the McLaren. Oh god. In a like quarter mile or maybe even half mile drag race. It also has 86 grip, which is pretty good, and then four-wheel drive and performance tires, which makes the GTR really, really good. And then next is Pagani, the 2016 Huayra, the top speed of 224, 0 to 60 time of 3.2, which means that it also is slower off the line than the GTR, which is quite funny. And a grip of 92, which is officially the most that we've seen so far, along with rear-wheel drive and performance tires, which, you know, figures for a supercar company. Next up is Porsche, which there's, in my opinion, too many in this game, especially since some of the ones way down here are absolute garbage. Like, this is awful. Anyways, there are more important things to get on to, like the 2013 911 Turbo, which is a top speed of 196, the same as the GTR, but slower off the line at 3.2, which somehow is the same as the Huayra, with a grip of 90, which is surprisingly really good, and four-wheel drive with performance tires. Still pretty good. Next is Renault, with the second oldest second oldest car in this so far, the 1987 R5 Maxi Turbo, with a top speed of 145. That's also surprisingly low for most of the vehicles we've seen so far, but it is also kind of old. And it has a 0 to 60 time of 4.1, and the grip is 84 with rear-wheel drive and performance tires. Next is what I was talking about before. The best car in this is one of the most disappointing, if not the most disappointing, of all of the best cars on here. Even considering how slow and ungrippy the Hummer is. The 2005 Smart Brabus Roadster, I don't actually know how to say that, but it also does have one of the lowest ranks of them so far, being an E rank and also requiring only 7 race quota. It has a top speed of 118, which isn't even the second slowest, but it's still disappointing. A 0 to 60 time of 9.3, which is the same as the Hummer. You know, a car that probably weighs like twice as much as it. And a grip of only 70, which isn't much more than the Hummers. Along with rear-wheel drive and performance tires. Next is Subaru. Now, this is where it comes time to compare Subaru and Mitsubishi with the best cars of both of them. So Subaru has a lower top speed. The 1998 Impreza 22B has a lower top speed, sadly, but, you know, sadly for all you Subaru fans, but the Mitsubishi is considerably newer. It also has a slower 0 to 60 time at 5.1 compared to the Mitsubishi's 3.2. It also has less grip at 85 compared to the Mitsubishi's 87. And of course they both have 4-wheel drive systems and performance tires. But the Subaru is a little bit less good. Next up is the Suzuki, which is the weirdest, most surprising one, with the 2007 Pikes Peak XL7, which has a top speed of 150, which is not faster than the Impreza, but it does have a 0 to 60 time of 2.1, which is the fastest we've seen so far. And a grip of 90 with 4-wheel drive and all-surface tires, which means that this is probably the best 4-wheel drive vehicle on the list. Although it does have kind of low ride height, which is, not exactly the best. And then we have TVR with their 2000 Cerbera Speed 12. With a top speed of 230, it's pretty high up there, 0 to 60 in 3.5, and a grip of 88 with a rear-wheel drive and performance tires. And then on to Vauxhall/Opel with the 2016 VX R8 GTS, which has a top speed of 155, a 0 to 60 time of 4 seconds, a grip of 81, with rear-wheel drive and performance tires, which is, slightly but, it kind of figures. And Volvo, the final brand in here. The 2015 V60 Polestar is 155 as its top speed, the same as the Vauxhall. 4.8, 0 to 60. A grip of 84, and 4-wheel drive and performance tires. So, now it's time for essentially the awards, which are the best and the worst of each category. So, let's start with the newest. So there are quite a few tied for the newest, since they kind of tried to put as many of like the newer cars in as possible. So, all tied for the newest, the 2017 Bugatti Chiron, the 2017 Ford GT, and the 2017 Jaguar F-Type SVR Coupe. Now, the oldest, which is a little bit more interesting, considering that, to be the oldest and yet the best of that brand, you kind of have to have some other things. The Citroen BX 4TC from 1982 is the oldest. Now, on to top speed. This one's a little bit easier. The highest top speed, unsurprisingly, is the Chiron, whatever. The lowest top speed is, unsurprisingly, again, the Hummer, which, a little disappointing. The lowest 0 to 60 time goes to the Suzuki Pikes Peak that we really just looked at because of its 2.1, which is pretty ridiculous. It beats the Chiron or whatever. Well, that's just disappointing. The Chiron by about 0.3 seconds, whereas the 2005 Smart and the Hummer are in last with 9.3. In terms of grip, the highest is the wow, that was awful. The Pagani Huayra at 92, and the lowest is the Hummer yet again with 65. Didn't do any other awards. However, we can also do the most disappointing and the best car. Now, the most disappointing, I am going to obviously give it to the Smart car, the Smart Brabus Roadster, just because it's supposed to be the best. Yeah, it doesn't bode well for smart cars in this game, because it's just awful. Now, the best car, there are relatively different things you can say. I mean, really, there are things you can say about like the Pikes Peak, because it's got all surface tires, 4-wheel drive, it's really quick, got a lot of grip. Of course, there's the Huayra, which has the most grip. You can have the Veyron, which is one of the fastest. The GTR for being, really quick drag race vehicle. I don't know. There's probably some other things you put in here. The TVR for having a really high top speed compared to everything else on it. But, there's probably give it to any one of those. Now, there is something that is also kind of bothering me with this game, even though we're 28 minutes into this. There are some notable brands that really should be in here. Now, I'm going to leave most of that up to, other people to be like, all of these, these 18 brands should be put in here, and a bunch of these vehicles should also be put in from these, which you didn't put in. But I mean, specifically things like Lamborghini and Ferrari would make this really cool to have some of that stuff in there. Just because it would be really cool to have like some of those in there, because both of those both of those brands have really rich histories in terms of their cars, very interesting cars as well, and could also be some competition for like McLaren and, I don't know, Bugatti and Caterham, I don't know, Pagani. In here, have some supercar competition in there. So yeah, it'd be really interesting to have some of that stuff in there, and just a lot of other brands. I mean, I don't know, there's just a lot that you could have in here that just isn't in here. But, not gonna worry about that right now. I don't know if I'm actually going to be doing this, like I said last time, but that should be it for, like, I don't know. top drives. That should be it for top drives, at least for now. We're done.